Both for the Cathedral of Notre Dame and for the city of Paris, the east-west orientation is of crucial importance. However, for the cathedral and for the city, that east-west orientation has a very different meaning. For the cathedral, the east-west orientation expresses an otherworldly perspective. It expresses devotion, preparation for a world to come. The east-west axis of the city refers to this worldly grandeur. That is to say, it glorifies the greatness, the splendor, the power and the progress of this world. Let's have a look. The cathedral is built in the shape of a cross. The transept of the cross-shaped building points north and south, and the nave has an east-west orientation. The east-west orientation of the cathedral has a symbolic meaning and plays a crucial role in the ritual life of the faithful. Entering the church, the faithful are facing east. In the morning they see how the morning light filters through the stained glass windows. In a metaphorical sense, the origins of light refer to salvation. Sunrise, daybreak, and morning light are metaphors referring to the birth, the life, and the death of Christ, which harbors the promise of redemption. By turning towards the Redeemer, by converting to Christ, the faithful seek salvation and prepare for death and transfiguration. Leaving the church, the faithful are reminded of the last judgment. On the inside, the western rose window shows the faithful how incarnation prepares man and universe for the end of time. On the outside, the sculptures of the western facade embody resurrection and last judgment. Look at the lowest tympan of the central portal. The trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised. The risen dead, some naked, others still covered by their shrouds, open their graves. Above them, the archangel Michael has already started to weigh the souls. The scale turns towards the woman in prayer on the left side of Saint Michael. The redeemed closest to Michael look up to face Christ. Others are looking at the angels waiting for them in the left frame. Just look at that couple in the middle. The wife looks up at Christ. Her husband moves towards the angels. Fearing to be separated, they hold hands. Devils do not waste any time. Look on the left side of the archangel Michael. Men and women of all ways of life, men of the church, kings and commoners, are taken away to eternal punishment. This aerial view of Notre Dame shows the east-west orientation of the cathedral. The east refers to salvation, the west to the last judgment at the end of time. The east-west axis of the city runs parallel with the nave of the cathedral, half a kilometer to its north. Unlike the Cathedral of Notre Dame, the east-west axis of Paris does not refer to a hereafter. It shows a fascination with this worldly triumph. Let's have a closer look at the so-called Triumphal Way, which starts in the courtyard of the Louvre and finds its culmination in the Grande Arche of La Défense. At the time of the construction of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, the kings of France lived in the palace on the city island. In the 15th century, the kings moved into the Louvre, which is located on the east-west axis of the city. The embellishment of the Louvre by the successive monarchs illustrates a significant revaluation of the king. From the first among equals, the king becomes the representative of the will of God on earth. Just like in Versailles, garden architect André Lenôtre introduces a perspective of infinity, which symbolizes the boundless authority, the limitless power of God's lieutenant on earth. Alongside the east-west axis of the city, he embellishes the Tuileries Gardens with a perspective that loses itself on the hill of Chaillot. When Napoleon comes to power, he turns the perspective of infinity into the capital's parade ground. No doubt, for a military genius like Napoleon, the city of Rome had been his source of inspiration. In ancient Rome, a sacred road, Via Sacra, runs across the Roman Forum to the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitol Hill. And the Via Sacra was marked with arches of triumph, which commemorated the great victories of the Roman legions. The largest and most elaborate arch in ancient Rome was the Arch of Constantine, with its 3 portals. This arch had been erected to commemorate the victory of Christianity over the pagan worship of the ancestors. In order to create a majestic entrance for the cathedral, the medieval master builders integrated the image of Constantine Arch into the western facade. And the 4 medallions on Constantine Arch, which glorify the victory of Christianity, are enlarged to that magnificent rose window above the western portals. Napoleon also used the example of the Arch of Constantine. Inside the courtyard of the Louvre, the Carousel Triumphal Arch is erected to celebrate the Napoleonic victories of 1805. In 1806, Napoleon commissions the construction of an arch at the top of the Champs-Élysées in honor of the French armies. The Arch of Titus, on the Via Sacra in Rome, is enlarged to the enormous proportions of the Arch of Triumph. This Arch of Triumph is decorated by hundreds of statues, which illustrate the departure of the volunteers of Marseille, the triumph of 1810, the battles of Aboukir and Austerlitz, and the passage of the Arcola Bridge. Most important are the reliefs on the 2 piers of the arch facing the Champs-Élysées. Napoleon is presented on the left pier of the arch as the protector of the heritage of the French Revolution. The relief representing the revolutionary tradition has been inspired by the Marseillaise, the national anthem. Look at the relief and listen to the words. Allons enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé. Contre nous de la tyrannie, l'étendard sanglant élevé. Arise, children of the fatherland. The day of glory has arrived. Against us tyranny's bloody standard is raised. In 1920, the monument is adjusted to commemorate the sacrifices of the Great War of 1914. As a symbol of mechanized warfare, an unknown soldier is buried under the Arch of Triumph. The memory of the unknown soldier is kept alive by a flame of remembrance. During the bicentennial of the French Revolution of 1989, the Grand Arch is inaugurated in the business district La Défense. Although the building was meant to be a monument to humanity and humanitarian ideals rather than military victories, the Danish architect von Spreckelsen designed the winning entry to be a 20th century version of the Arch of Triumph. No statues, no illustration clarify the meaning of this modern Arch of Triumph. As the perfect cube of glass in Carrara is an office building, housing the Department of Equipment, it could also be seen as a monument to the welfare state. The extension of the Champs-Élysées to La Défense gave the east-west axis of Paris an almost geographic dimension. Starting in the courtyard of the Louvre, gaining stature on the top of the Champs-Élysées, the triumphal way finds its culmination in La Grande Arche. Triumph, victory. Let's go back to Notre Dame for a little bit. In the image of Notre Dame, in the stained glass windows, in the sculptures, triumph, the ultimate triumph, is presented as the resurrection from death. On the east-west axis of Paris, triumph is glorified in a military sense. But there's another fascinating difference. In Notre Dame, the west refers to the end of time. On the east-west axis of Paris, the west symbolizes progress. Progress with the ideological implication that the west illuminates the world. Have a look at this. Did you know that practically all the statues which decorate the east-west axis are facing west? Let me take you to the very beginning of that east-west axis of Paris, the Chateau of Vincennes. Both Louis IX and Charles de Gaulle are oriented towards the west. A little further to the west, you will arrive at the Place de la Nation. High up on their columns, King Louis IX and King Louis Philippe are facing east. They are represented as the kings of France who belong to the past. But in the center of the square, the bronze group by Dalou represents the triumph of the Republic. Marianne, the female emblem of France since the Revolution, is oriented towards the west, towards the future. In the courtyard of the Louvre, it is almost as if Napoleon's glance directs the western orientation of the overwhelming majority of the statues. The meaning of the western orientation is further explained by Egyptian symbols of light, the obelisk and the pyramid, which embellish the east-west axis of the city. In ancient Egypt, a pyramid is the top of an obelisk, and an obelisk represents a ray of the sun. The glass pyramid, which architect Pey introduced in the courtyard of the Louvre, corresponds with the pyramid on top of the obelisk on the Place de la Concorde. The obelisk on Concord Square foreshadows the Eiffel Tower in the distance. In this manner, Egyptian symbols of the sun prepare the way for a modern beacon of light, which has been constructed to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. All these monuments have been erected to commemorate great moments in the history of France. These monuments can also be regarded as milestones in the history of modern Western thought, and as such they mark the beginning of a new secular age. Some of these monuments, like the Tuileries Gardens for instance, they show how the omnipotence of God in medieval Christianity shifts towards the representative of the will of God on earth, the King of France, the absolute monarch, whose power is limitless, whose authority boundless. Other monuments, like arches of triumph, they mark the perception of new revolutionary ideas, new revolutionary and imperial ideas to change, to transform, to conquer the world. Altogether, they show how the otherworldly vision expressed by Notre Dame fades to be overshadowed by modern man's vision of this worldly progress.